Hello friends and welcome. Do you by chance notice anything just a little different about my makeup today? Well, if you looked at one side of my face and you're thinking, wow, what a train wreck, I would certainly agree with you. Yes, this is what our makeup can look like when we have quite a few uh-oh moments when applying our makeup. I imagine that we've all had to deal with most of these makeup hiccups at one time or another, but hopefully we've never had to deal with all of these makeup mistakes at one time. For me, they usually happen when I'm in a hurry. And you definitely think I'd know better, especially at this point in my life. Well, fortunately, there is no need to take off all of our makeup and reapply it because there are some quick fixes which can save the day. All we need is a little patience, a few products we most likely already have, and the right tools. But before we focus on today's topic, I want to welcome back those of you who are already friends, and also give a special welcome to those of you who are joining us here for the very first time today. For those of you who are new, my name is Elise, and this channel is dedicated to helping those of us with mature skin who are interested in learning makeup tips and techniques and product information that meet our needs right now. So whether you occasionally wear makeup or are interested in giving makeup a try for the first time, or have enjoyed wearing makeup for many years, I hope you'll find the videos on this channel to be both helpful and enjoyable. And if that's the case with today's video, please subscribe before you leave today. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified each week when a new video is available. All right, on to today's subject. Let's start with our eyes and work our way down. Now first, our eyebrows. Frankly, I feel rather like a Disney villain with this one eyebrow since it's way too dark and overpowering. But luckily, there are some easy fixes for this. The first step is to take a clean eyebrow spoolie and run it through the brow to remove any excess product. Then we need to take some powder and apply the powder to our brows with a fluffy brush. Then it's helpful to take an angled brush and apply the powder specifically to the areas of the eyebrows which are darkest. So I'm first taking a spoolie and I'm getting off any excess product I can with this spoolie. And I think you can see it is helping at least a little bit. Then I'm going to take a little powder on this fluffier brush and I'm just going to go over the eyebrow with the powder, back and forth. So I coat both the hairs going one way and then back against the grain, as it were. And I think you can see that that's made quite a bit of difference. Now, if the eyebrows are still too dark, there is another technique that can really work well. Or you may want to try this technique instead of using the powder. All you need to do is coat a small angled eyebrow brush with concealer. Wipe it off lightly with a tissue and then apply the concealer as if you're drawing in individual eyebrow hairs, which actually is what you're doing, except they're lighter eyebrow hairs. So I'm going to take a little bit of concealer and apply it on this very thin eyebrow brush. This is an eyebrow brush from Anastasia Beverly Hills. It's the 7B. Just taking a tiny bit, drawing it in through the eyebrow, as you can see. And then I'm going to take the other end and pull it through. And that did a good job of getting it even lighter. Next, let's tackle the two issues caused by my eyeshadow. The first problem is eyeshadow that's way too far outside the area where it should be, and that's right over here. And the second problem is eyeshadow fallout under my eyes. Now normally, these are not problems for me because I always apply my eyeshadow before applying my face makeup, and I really recommend doing that to avoid these kinds of problems. But when I do apply my eye makeup before my face makeup, it's easy to just take a wet Q-tip, a Q-tip dipped into a moisturizer, or a makeup wipe, or one of these small sponges, and then simply wipe away the fallout. But since I did apply my face makeup first today, it's a little trickier to remove the eyeshadow in both areas without disturbing the makeup underneath. To minimize how much I'll disturb the makeup, I'm going to lightly sweep a clean brush over the fallout. Whisk it away like this, and that usually works pretty darn well. but you do want to make sure it's a fluffy brush. If this doesn't totally get rid of the fallout, I can use a dry Real Technique sponge to actually dab it off, or I can lightly roll a damp Q-tip over the fallout to pick it up. Taking a slightly damp Q-tip and then just very lightly rolling it across and picking up any additional fallout. I'm just barely touching my skin. I really haven't disturbed too much of the makeup underneath, but I will put a little bit of moisturizer and concealer on a Q-tip or on one of the sponges and then gently dab that in the area where I was picking up the fallout. So I'm just taking a tiny bit of concealer and dabbing it like this, and then just going to press it in. And that takes care of any small bit of makeup I may have disturbed. To take care of the eyeshadow, which is extended too far toward my temple, I'm going to use a makeup wipe wrapped around my finger and then gently just blot it upward toward my temple. So I just wrapped it around my finger and I'm just going to gently dab it over this area. I don't want it to go below this line. And I think you can see how much I got off on the wipe. Then, in order to give my eyes a very subtle lift, I'm going to take the slightly lighter concealer color that I use, which happens to be e.l.f.'s Hydrating Camel Concealer in Fair Beige, and I'm going to put a couple of dots of it on and gently pat it in an upward direction. This lighter concealer would not only cover up this mistake, but also give a slight illusion of lift to that area of my eyes. So I'm just going to dot on a little bit of the concealer going upward. Then I'm just going to very lightly tap it in with my finger. And again, I think you can see what a big difference that made. Before, the eyeshadow came all the way down to here. Now let's deal with the mascara slips. The most important thing to remember is to wait until the mascara has completely dried before trying to remove it. I'll take a Q-tip and gently flick off the mascara first. So this mascara is now definitely dried, and you can see it just flicks off easily. Now this spot is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to use a little bit different technique. A clean brow spoolie will once again come to the rescue with this. I'm going to gently rub the spoolie over the spot and then flick it away with the Q-tip. So I'm just going to gently roll it with the spoolie. I bet you didn't know there were so many uses for a spoolie. And as you can see, that got most of the big spot off. And then I'm just going to flick it away with the Q-tip. And I think I got it all. Now let's take a look under the eye. I applied concealer, but I didn't do one more step that would have kept the concealer from creasing. So I'm going to go ahead and take a soft brush, pick up just a little bit of translucent powder. So as you can see, I have just a tiny bit of powder on this brush. Then I'm going to look up, which is very important, and pat out the concealer with either a damp sponge or my finger to remove the creases. Then I'm taking my powder and just gently touching along here. I'm not even rubbing, I'm just dabbing it, and that will keep that concealer from creasing. My next trouble spots are on the face. My foundation is a little too dark, and I've also been way too heavy-handed and applied too much blush, too much highlighter, and too much contour. In addition to applying too much of these products, I've also left obvious lines of demarcation so you can see where the blush, highlight, and contour stopped and started. Definitely not a good look. And there's also a major problem with my lips that I need to deal with as well. But first, let's tackle the foundation issue. I need to use a lightweight concealer that's just a little bit lighter than my skin tone and blend just a very small amount of it onto the side of my face that's darker. So I'm just tapping on some concealer just in this area where I applied darker foundation and tapping over it lightly. To tone down the blush, I'm going to use a stippling brush to lightly tap over the top and the edges of the blush to remove a little bit of it first. Here is my stippling brush, and I'm just going to literally tap over it, and that's picking up some of it already. It's important to use a stippling brush because the stippling brush prevents the makeup underneath the blush from being disturbed, and it also gently blends out the blush. Now we could also use a damp sponge to do this as well. And by the way, a stippling brush always works very well to apply blush because it has 2 layers of bristles. The top layer of a stippling brush picks up the blush you're going to apply, and the bottom layer of bristles is denser, which helps to push the product onto the skin rather than absorbing the formula. A stippling brush essentially applies the product in tiny dots that are so close together that they blend for a flawless finish. And it's the top layer of bristles that creates the dots. The result is an airbrushed appearance with really nice coverage. And as you can see, the stippling brush picked up so much of that blush that I don't think I need to tap over it with a sponge. To tone down the highlighter, I could use either a stippling brush or a sponge, and I'm going to go ahead and use a sponge this time. I'm just taking my small sponge and just tapping over it. This picks up just enough to really blend it out. I'm next going to tone down the contour in the same way, but I'll use a different section of the sponge to do so. And as you can see, this is also getting rid of those lines of demarcation. Now, if it's necessary to tone down the blush, highlighter, or contour even more, you could always go in with a foundation brush that you used and just tap over the area that needs to be toned down a bit. Most likely there will be still a little bit of foundation left over on the brush, just enough to really blend in those edges. But if not, you can always pick up just a tiny bit more foundation on the brush and apply it lightly over the contour and around the blush area. So there is one little area here that I want to tone down a little bit more, so I'm taking that foundation brush and just patting it over. So I think you can see what a big difference it made to use a stippling brush, the sponge, and the foundation brush to go around all the edges and really tone things down. And then to blend out any lines of demarcation around the blush, highlighter, or contour, I think it works especially well to use a sponge, but you can always go back in with the foundation brush as well. Now, of course, powder can also be used to tone down blush and contour, but for many of us who have drier skin, we may not want to apply more powder. Now let's finish up by solving the lipstick situation. Who among us has not gone outside our lip line when applying lipstick at one time or another? There are several ways to go about correcting this problem. You can wrap a tissue around a finger and then with your nail gently rub over the lipstick that needs to be removed. And always remember to go in the direction toward the lips rather than away from them, since going away from the lips can smear the color further outward. If you can still see the lipstick color, there are two different things that you can do. First, you could pick up a tiny bit of concealer with a small lipstick brush and cover up the color that remains. Or, and this is a makeup artist trick that is helpful in many ways, you can use a tiny bit of clear eye primer with one end of a Q-tip and wipe it away with the other end of the Q-tip. Clear eye primer can be used to pick up any kind of color, so it's something that's always useful to have on hand. So I'm going to take a Kleenex and wrap it around my finger and with my nail get rid of that lipstick. And I'm going to go toward my lip. Now that got rid of most of it, but I still think it would look neater and cleaner to apply just a tiny bit of concealer. So I picked up the concealer with this very tiny lip brush, and then I'm just going to lightly go right along the edge. And that takes care of it. And there's one other product I want to mention that really can come in handy as well. It's Urban Decay's Quick Fix Hydra Charged Complexion Prep Priming Spray. That is a mouthful. If you want to touch up or reapply any makeup, this is a great product to spray onto a slightly dampened makeup sponge and then apply over your makeup before reapplying makeup. And something else that I always like to recommend in case of emergencies, especially if you're going to be attending a special event, is to have a small Ziploc bag that can be tucked into your purse that contains some essentials for an emergency. A makeup wipe, Q-tips, concealer, a small clean lipstick brush, and a dampened sponge. With these products in tow, you can just about solve any makeup mishap that pops up during the course of the day or evening. I hope you found today's tips helpful, and if so, I'd appreciate your giving this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, I also hope you'll subscribe. And if you have any special tips that have solved any of your makeup mishaps, I do hope you'll share them with us in the comments section below. Until next week, I wish you good health and happiness and hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Take care.